right, so we have a request of doing some arms today. That's right up my alley. So, all right, I'm going to plug in the microphone. Can you all still hear me? Yes? Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to start again sitting today. And if you need to, always have a little pillow underneath your pelvis. If you feel very comfortable sitting without a pillow or somewhat just a little bit challenged, go for that. We're trying to always get up to the edge of things in a good way. Of course, we want to push a little bit and really work, especially those 55, 60 minutes that we're doing this. And then for the rest of the day, you can take it pretty easy. All right, so any seat is okay. So this could be something asymmetrical, this could be something more symmetrical or more symmetrical, but just kind of finding a moment to just sit and take a breath. So we're going to go ahead and find our sits bones. So as we're sitting here, and I'll show my side just to make sure this is very visible. I have a striped shirt on today, so this always helps a bit. So by pulling the mat behind me, that's what's sitting me more upright into what we would call more of a neutral position. This is what we would call the tuck. And too much extension, too much anterior is almost impossible here. So this is pretty neutral. And then we're going to just pull the sits bones down and back. We're going to find our legs right away. And we're going to flex the feet and pull the heels down into the ground. And that isometric work right away starts to fire up the hamstrings. My glutes are on, my hip flexors are on. And then I'm going to just soften a little bit my diaphragm back. And just to be less here, which is my preferred position, it's more like I'm softening my ribs. And we're just taking 3 deep breaths. And you can put your hands anywhere you like. And exhale. And as you breathe, breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. We're still pulling the sits bones down and back and the heels down into the ground, softening the ribs. Don't worry if your head ends up a little too far forward. If it feels a little like, whoa, it's okay. And it has to almost happen if we take the ribs a little bit more back and out of the middle back extension. We'll take one more deep breath. Even the shoulders might lift a little bit and then exhale. Very good. So now we're going to come into a somewhat cross-legged position. And this could be a very open, depending on what the knees are doing, if they feel good or not so good, or you can go full cross-legged. And we're going to just start with little circles here. So I am pivoting my pelvis. And I'm trying not to move. And we've talked about this last week and the week before. We're trying not to move the pelvis by moving our ribs. We're going right deep into the hip and we're pivoting on the sits bones. And we're weight shifting. So here I'm on my left sits bone. My right sits bone is left the floor. It's not even down. And then as I round forward, my sits bones push the mat behind me. And as I come to the right, my left sits bone lifts up. Now we're going really slow here. And this is honestly, I feel like the most important work we're doing all hour, if you will. It's really about connecting down into the hip again. And for most of us, there is a big void. There's a big disconnect in what the pelvis can do. So we're trying to just wake up and remember how our hips can move. And then we're going to reverse the circle. And we're letting the kidneys, sits bones falling back. So my back is slightly rounded. But as I pull the sits bones back, I'm keeping my kidneys back. So I am keeping the roundedness, the flexion in the spine. We'll do one more circle. And we're coming to center. Okay, we're going to start with a little side to side bend. I'm starting here with my right side. I'm going to take my right hand towards the back part of my hip. You don't want to be too far out. Just notice the one caveat, the closer in you are with your hand to your hip, the harder this thing gets. So you can be about 10 inches away from your hip, and we're going to pull ourselves down into the floor. And then we're going to push up. We'll do a couple on that right side. So I literally want to think I have to pull. My fingers are engaging down into the floor, and I am pushing up. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm sending my sits bones still back, and I'm softening my diaphragm back, and I'm pulling. Now, as you go down, stay there maybe for a moment and look to the floor. Pull the right shoulder blade back in space onto your ribs, and then push back up. Very good. So we're slowly, we're pumping here in a way. We're never just moving our ribs. This is all arm. This should be starting to get quite toasty in that right arm. Shoulder blade pulls back in space. The upper arm bone should be as far away from the floor as you can get it. And then just coming up, take a little inventory. And I can already see, I don't know if you can feel it, or you can see it, but my right shoulder is already much more relaxed and down. And my left shoulder is still kind of up here. So this is just working. The pull and the push is already starting to release neck here. Let's switch the position of the legs. Just do something different. Other foot forward. And then we're going to go to the other side. I'm going to pull my sits bones back. I'm going to soften my kidneys. My hand is either very close to the hip or 10, 12 inches away. All of my fingers are active, and I'm pulling myself down. My shoulder blade moves away and down the back. And then I'm going to push up. There's always activity in this arm. Shoulder blade, the upper arm bone head moves away from the floor. Go really slow here. And as you're down here, pull the kidneys and the diaphragm a little more back in space. And that should make you feel your abdominals a little bit more. That's always a good sign. If we're feeling the core, which are not just the abdominals, but in this case, let's say we're looking for the abdominals, for the obliques. We'll do 2 more of these pulses. Pulling myself down, shoulder blade retracts, upper arm bone goes away from the floor. And then if you haven't done so yet, turn your head to the floor. Look down into the mat, and then pushing back up. And then just taking a little inventory. Oh, good. Now that left shoulder is relaxed too. All right, we're going to add a little bit on. Switch the legs again. And this could be even more of a wider sit because we're going to go a little bit further. So now I'm going to add my left hand. So my right hand will still be the one that carries most of the load. I would say 95%, but my left fingertips are going to assist. So now what I'm doing, I'm pulling down with both shoulder blades squeezing together. I'm using both hands to pull, and then I'm going to push up. But I'm still, right hand is the major player. I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades together, and I'm going to look over to my right hand. And I'm going to push up. Notice if the push up is preceded by a head lift. So we're trying to not lift the head first. I'm trying to use my arm and also not my ribs. Sometimes we fall into a little bit of extension. Keep the kidneys lifted, keep the sits bones back. Find your breath. We're going to do one more time. Squeeze the shoulders together. Pull the upper arm bones away from the floor. Use your palm, use your fingertips. And coming up. Take a moment. Just feel all this flush happening here, the work happening in the neck, in the shoulder, pec, triceps, and then cross the legs one more time the other direction. Make it again a little looser leg position. And then we're going to start to pull down again. My right hand, my right fingertips are assisting. And this is just so I can now really make sure I can turn my head over. I'm pulling myself down, squeezing both shoulders together. I'm looking towards my left hand. And I'm pushing up, lifting my kidneys and my diaphragm first. So the action is, again, as I said, purely my arms and shoulders. Imagine you're doing a push-up, really. We're pulling down. All of my fingertips are engaged, especially on the left hand, the thumb and index finger. 2 more, so we'll do 5. Shoulders squeezed together, looking towards your left hand. And one more time. Breathe fully. And coming all the way up. And find another moment of stillness. Checking in, letting this really just flush open. Now, we're going to do another little shoulder sequence here. You're going to take your palms together. And you're going to face them towards your screen that you're looking at right now, or straight in front of you, depending on where you're sitting, of course. You're going to push the palms as hard as you can into each other. And then you're going to try to also get your elbows to touch. So I'm shaking here. I'm pushing my forearms and my palms into each other. And if your elbows are not touching, don't worry about it, right? If they're touching, great. If they don't touch, great. But try to bring them as close together as possible. You're pressing, and now pull the shoulder blades a little bit together on your back. So now my whole shoulder girdle is working. If you can lower the palms, so the fingers point straight out from your heart, keep pressing those elbows, keep pulling the shoulder blades together. And then pull the fingertips apart. Imagine like Spider-Man, you have a web here. And then flex your palms. Push the walls away. Soften the shoulders. Now turn your head to the left. Look behind your left shoulder. Turn your head to the right. Look behind. Use your eyes to really look behind that right shoulder. And then come to center, and then just let the arms float down. We'll do this one more time. We're going to start with the palms together. I'm pushing. You can really feel like if you're, again, isometrics, I love them. They're so amazing. So you're pushing, nothing's moving. So that's the isometric part of this. I'm going to bring my elbows together, my forearms. I'm going to still push as like my arms are shaking here. I'm pulling my shoulder blades a little bit together in the back. I'm pushing. So the shoulder blades squeezing together in the back is going to help us to not overly round that upper back. Then we can lower the palms, keep the pressure. Now turn, pinky fingers squeeze together. Keep the elbows as close together as you can. Find your breath. Maybe turn your palm more. thumbs to the floor, and then turn out, elbows stay close, and then you're going to push. This time the fingertips are facing up. Now let's go even higher. Look toward the ceiling, push the ceiling away. If you can, lift your chin a lot, keep your diaphragm and your heart back. And then big circle down. And you're going to rest your hands on your knees. Very good. Okay, we're going to come up to standing and do this creatively. Let's say, have fun with it. So if you need to use chair, table, whatever is nearby is okay. But I would like to encourage you to work on standing up without using your hands. Of course, you are where you are. There's nothing wrong with it. But the idea is that I'm not doing this, right? But I'm using my legs. I'm using my feet. Okay. I turn the screen a little bit up. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of, my personal plan was a lot of legs today. And then we had the request for arms. So we'll do both. Easy breezy. So we're going to come to standing. And if you don't have a mat, that would be actually even better. You can even push the mat a little bit aside. I'm going to step just on the carpet here. And we're going to just start a little bit of a side to side. And we've worked on that where we're pushing the feet, and I'm turning my feet here slightly inward. So my big toes are slightly narrower than my heels. Because most of us have this as a preferred stance, and we want to counter that. So we want to have a little bit more internal rotation in the hip joint. And I'm just going to go side to side. I am pushing the earth to the right. I'm shifting to the left. I'm pushing the earth to the left, and my body shifts to the right. Make sure your big toes stay really grounded. And what's mostly moving is my pelvis. And you can observe probably that one hip goes way more than the other. Don't worry about it. It's just kind of take note. Usually if the hip goes really far, there's some kind of other compensatory thing going on. You might have a lower back issue on that side or a knee issue, maybe no issue. But it's just part of what the body can do. So what I would encourage you though, if you can go really far someplace, back up a little bit and go to the other side, try to go to the other side a little further. So we're trying to even out. We want to have the slower side catch up a little bit. Don't push into the side that already moves a lot. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and shift a couple more times. And then we're going to do a hula hoop. So this is one of my new favorites. I think everybody can relate to hula hooping. And we're moving the pelvis in this orbital, in this, not really circle, but it's more an egg shape. And notice how your feet can stay planted and my legs and pelvis move really freely. Reverse your hula hoop. And then we're going to slow it down because I want to talk a little bit more about what has to happen. So as I roll back, I'm going to pick up my kidneys a little bit. And as I go to the front, I'm going to keep my kidneys back. So I'm trying to now increase the movement in my upper body as I'm hula hooping. But I want to keep the engagement in my core, because if I go too far and I'm not connected here, my lower back is going to not be very happy. So as I'm going back, I'm rounding the spine a little bit. And as I'm going forward, I'm pulling my feet down into the ground. I'm almost thinking my carpet goes behind me, my hip comes forward, my legs are on, my glutes are on, my abs are on. We're going to do one more circle like that. And let's stay in this position. So we're going to stay in that forward part of the pelvis. pull your feet into the ground and behind you, isometric. Soften the kidneys back. Hopefully your buttocks is on. My knees are bent here. And then look up toward the ceiling. Don't go too far if that doesn't feel good. Turn on your butt. Squeeze your butt if he's not working or she's not working. Take a nice breath. And then drop the chin and coming back. And then shake it out a little bit. I hope you can feel that if you pull the feet into the ground and behind you, you're actually working your legs way more, and you need the support of your legs and your butt for any back bend that we're trying to do. Okay, so the next thing is a forward bend. Comfortable, maybe a little bit more than hip width distance. Now be really conscious in your forward bend. We don't do that much, so you might get dizzy, or I hope not, obviously, but if you need to get out of it, take a couple of deep breaths and roll up or sit down. But what we're going to do here, we're going to do the same side to side shifting that we did standing. Now let your head drop. You're looking through your legs. You do not want to see the mat underneath you. You're watching what's happening behind you. And I'm shifting side to side. Keep your knees bent. Keep your feet really active. If you need to put your fingertips on the floor, that's really nice. But imagine you're pushing the earth. You can also do this without your hands on the floor if you feel good about this. It's a little bit more work for your legs. And as we're shifting here side to side with the slightly bent knees, your legs should start to come on. And if you feel a stretch here in your hamstrings, you got to turn on the hamstrings more. You really got to pull your feet down into the ground and hug your hamstrings into the bone. Imagine they could come closer to your thigh bone. And then come to center, bend your knees, and we're going to pull the feet down into the floor. We're going to slowly round ourselves up. Keep the knees slightly bent. Head is the last thing, nice, to stack up. Very good. And then shake it out for a moment. So this is one of the most fundamental and beautiful things to do for your lower back. If this hurts your lower back, back up a little bit as far as you go down and pull the kidneys a little bit more up. We'll do this one more time. I'll talk through that a little bit more specifically. So we're going to bend the knees. We're going to round our spine. My feet are heavy. My toes are as heavy as my heels. So I'm not falling to the back of my foot. My toes are hugely important here. If you can bend your knees a lot here, actually. Like you can totally lay your ribs onto your legs and take a couple breaths. You're again looking behind you. And we can do this little side to side shifting. And it's really hard to teach to not stretch. It's really hard to convey that sensation that can happen. It's a sensation of work. And we're very conditioned from, whatever we've heard about sports, that we should stretch. And I would say don't stretch. No animal stretches before they go for a run. And we do it. It's kind of pathetic. So we're engaging consciously our muscles. We're lengthening the muscles with engagement. Bend your knees, come to the center, and slowly rounding yourself up. Head is the last thing. Keep the pressure down of your feet in the floor and release. Very good. Now we're going to do a little asymmetrical step. So let's say the right foot is forward and the left foot is back. So this is it's very Tai Chi, if you will. Like we're not ever having equal weight in both feet at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift the weight a little bit back onto the back foot here. So my back foot is turned out about 30 degrees, maybe 45. you want to make sure that your knee and your toes are going over the same, they're in the same direction. You definitely don't want to turn your knee and your toes the other direction. That is crazy for your ligaments in your knees. So we're going to have a little more weight on the back foot. It's almost like I could pick up my right foot. I don't have to, but I can just come onto the toes. So now my left glute is really starting to work, but I'm going to shift forward onto my right foot, and I'm going to find a forward bend here again. My back heel is lifting up here. You can put your fingertips on the floor, bend your knees a lot, and then slowly start to pulse your pelvis. We're thinking about the sitting bones. Right here, we're going to drop them to the floor, and we're going to reach them toward the ceiling. Do not go for straight legs. Keep your knees always bent. I promise you'll feel your legs more. If we're locking into our knees, we're out of touch with the muscles. Bend your knees a lot. Now slowly shift out of your hands. So tell your brain, okay, it's up to the legs now again. And you're going to slowly round up. You should be really feeling stuff here. Let's shake it out. Let's do the other side. Left foot is forward, right foot is back. First, I'm going to shift into that right foot. And this is what the sassy hip looks like. Everybody knows that one, right? So my hip is sassy. My 90% of my weight are on the back foot, glute, leg. If I wanted to, I could chamber, I could pick up this foot, but I'm just going to keep the heel lifted. And then I'm going to shift forward onto that left foot. My right heel is lifted, bending both knees, and I'm going to slowly round myself down. You can put the fingertips on the floor again. You can bend your knees a lot. And we're going to pulse. We're going to pull the feet, left foot, right toes, down into the floor. And the moment you feel the stretch, that means when your sits bones go a little more up to the ceiling, engage your leg more or stop it. Do not try and ride on that stretch. Do not look for it. We're not looking for stretch, we're looking for strength. Your knees, your quads should be talking to you. Shift back into your feet, hands off the floor. Head is the last thing to come up. Pull your feet down. And you're going to come all the way up and release. Very good. Let's come back down to sitting, please. I really hope you could experience your legs here for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to face sideways. And we're going to find a little balance point. So this is kind of a little Pilates-ish exercise, kind of like rolling like a ball, but we're not going to go there yet. So you're going to hold with your hands behind your thigh bones, and we're going to rock our pelvis back. So just this tiny little tilt, and I think we've done that, right? We're going to take the diaphragm back and then see if we can pick up the feet or the heels. And you're pressing your legs into your hands and your hands into your legs. And at the same time, we're sliding the shoulders down the back. So breathing here and balancing, but bring your kidneys back as much as possible because we don't want to end up in an extension here. This is flexion. Breathing here. If it's not possible, you can just pick up alternate toes, or you can, do whatever you have to do and then slowly come back. We'll do this one more time. So I'm going to start to rotate my pelvis back. My kidneys fall back in space. My feet gather towards the pelvis. I'm pushing my legs into my hands into my legs. My arms are really on. My biceps are working. And then maybe I can lift my toes off the floor. And we're breathing. Now, if you're feeling this, Maybe your hands can leave your legs. We're breathing, keeping the kidneys back. If you feel really great today, start some pulsing. Yeah, Tom, start some pulsing in your legs, but make sure the spine stays rounded. We don't want to pulse and move the spine at the same time, right? You can always just stay here and then lower your feet down and release. And let's do a roll down. So we're trying to sit as upright as possible. I'm finding my sits bones here, pulling them down and back. And here again, my heels pull down into the floor. My feet are flexed. Let's do a forward bend first. We've been here standing upright, but it's the same idea. I'm pulling my kidneys back and I am pushing the wall away. My heels pull down, my feet are flexed. Work your hamstrings. Again, if they're stretched, you got to turn your legs on more. And then lift up. And here we go. We're going to slowly start to roll the pelvis back. And reach your arms overhead. Flex your feet again. Elongate your body as much as possible. You're yawning. It's early in the morning. We're like, oh, we're reaching, but we're not stretching. So it's always a resistance part in that. Now we're going to reach the arms up to the ceiling and you're going to bend the knees a tiny bit. This is just for most people's lower back. Pull the heels down into the floor and then just lift up into a small abdominal curl. Breathing here, you're going to look at your toes. I'm pulling my brain back and I'm dropping my chin. And I'm slowly starting to raise my arms up. So here we go. The height of the arms will change the work in my abdominals. Breathing here. Here's a little shake maybe. How light can I make my ribs? And then slowly lower your head down. Arms reach overhead. We're going to go for another big reach. Flex your feet. Reach the heel of the hand away. Let the shoulders come up to your ears. Elongate everything. And then hands reach up to the ceiling. Nice deep breath in. Exhale, the hands come down by my side. The head and the heart lift up. And with heart, I'm meaning it's more the breastbone. I don't want to pop the heart. That'll lower my head. I want to lift the top of the breastbone. My glutes are engaged. My feet are pulling down into the floor. I'm backing up my brain. I'm really looking down towards my pubic bone. I'm raising my arms up. Go to the point where you can maintain your head and heart. You don't want to lower your head down because your arms come high. We're keeping the upper body and then slowly lowering down. And we'll do one more time. Arms reach overhead. Big breath. Reach everything. Yawn into your whole, into the skin, into the whole body, everywhere. Widening, reaching, breathing. And then we'll reach the arms up one more time. And on the exhale, they start to lower down. We're going to abdominal curl. Looking at the toes. Beautiful. And then reach the arms back up. Again, keep your head and heart, top of the breastbone lifted. Look at your toes. Soften the shoulders. Widen the collarbones. And then lower everything down. Hands go down by your side. Let the legs turn out. Let the palms face up to the ceiling. The shoulder blades can come a little bit together on your back. And just take inventory. How supple is your body on the floor? How heavy are the ribs? How heavy is the pelvis? How turned out can your feet be to completely relax the hip joint here? And take 2, 3 really deep breaths. So this is already, we moved already a lot. It's half hour in and you're almost good to go. So this is why every little bit counts. Even if you can just do 20 minutes, do 20 minutes. It's better than nothing. All right, we're going to bend the knees now. Walk your feet in. They're flat on the floor. And they're about sits bone distance. So if you put your hands to your hip bones in the front of your body, they're very easily feelable, those big bony pieces, hard pieces. And then if you walk your fingertips towards your navel, the moment where you feel flesh or muscle, that's where your thigh bone inserts into the hip socket. Most of us think my hip socket is out here on the outer side of my pelvis. It's not. It's very central in the front. And that's really where we want to, think about weight bearings. Even when you walk or stand, you can think a little more, hey, are my feet really wide, or are they turned out, or can I bring them a little bit more internally rotated and a little closer underneath my pelvis? And that is a better weight distribution for your knees and your ankles and your feet. So just kind of becoming aware. So hip bones, we're going a little bit in, and that's where the hip joint is. So feet are parallel, and I'm going to bring the arms down by my side. Here we go. We're going to start to wake up the back chain a little bit. I'm pulling my feet into the ground. I'm pulling my shoulders into the ground. I'm dropping my sits bones. And I almost forgot it. If you need something underneath your head, if your head feels like you're looking a little bit more behind you than up to the ceiling, please put something, a little towel underneath your head or a little pillow. All right, so I'm pulling my feet down into the ground. I'm pulling the upper arm bones down into the ground, my skull, all of my ribs, my kidneys are heavy, and my sits bones are dropping. You're holding yourself onto the earth. Imagine you'd fly away if you didn't do this. And then release. We'll do this again. I'm dropping my sits bones. I'm dropping the kidneys, all of my ribs, or as many as I can. I'm pulling the shoulder blades into the floor. I am pulling my feet into the floor and my skull. And I am shortening the back body. This is kind of a little precursor to our bridging. And then release. We'll do this one more time. Feet pull down, sits bones. So hamstrings and glutes already engaged. My shoulders pull into the mat. My skull. Try not to let the chin lift up if your skull pulls down into the mat. The bra strap area, the diaphragm. And how much effort can you exert here to pull yourself down into the floor? Celebrate your back body. And release. Very good. All right. We're going to do a little bit more core, abdominal core. So we're going to go ahead. We'll keep the heavy sits bones, and then we're going to lift the legs into tabletop. We're going to flex the feet. Now notice as you lifted your legs, your ribs might have already lifted away from the floor. Try to get those ribs really down into the floor. And here my big toes and my ankles are touching. And I'm going to start to do a little side to side. So I'm taking both legs over to the right. I'm pulling my left shoulder down into the floor. And I'm going to slowly swing the pendulum back to center. And I'm going to swing my legs over to the left. My right shoulder pulls down into the floor. And I'm going to come back to center. If you need a break, take a break. If not, keep on going. You're going to take the legs over to the right, pull the left shoulder down, soften the diaphragm, but stick your butt up. Now I'm almost just pivoting on my right hip bone here. Slowly coming back to center, going over to the left. You want to work with as little momentum as possible. You're picking up your right hip as you go to the left. And then you're peeling that right hip back down onto the floor. Again, if you take a break, that's okay, but we'll do one more time and I'm giving a chance to add on. You're going to pendulum your legs to the right. Maybe your legs go straight. Now pull both shoulders down into the floor. Look with your head over your left shoulder. As your legs go to the right, you're going to bend your knees, swing through center, straighten the head. We're going to take the legs to the left. I'm going to straighten my legs, but again, it's not about straight. 90% straight is great. And look with your head to the right. Pull both shoulders down into the floor. Pull the kidneys heavy. Bend the knees. Swing to center and lower down. Straighten the legs for a moment. And take inventory. That should have made quite a bit of a change here with the back body releasing down. Okay, so we have to bridge, of course, always. This is one of my, probably not my favorite thing to do, but my favorite thing to teach. We're going to find the feet flat on the floor again, parallel. You're going to pull the shoulders down into the floor and towards your feet, and you're going to pull your feet isometrically. Again, no movement up to your shoulders. Make sure your big toes are heavy, sits bones are heavy, diaphragm is heavy, and then I'm going to go ahead and summon my legs and my glutes to lift the pelvis up. I'm making my ribs as heavy as possible, so my legs have to work as hard as possible. If my chest pops up, there is not a lot of work in your legs. And breathe here. Pull your upper arm bone heads down into the floor. So your shoulders are pulling, maybe even your thumb and index fingers are pulling. My triceps are on. My inner thighs spiraling toward the floor. My sits bones are dropping. Notice if your knees are going to go out to the side. So try not to let them go out to the side. And then slowly lower back down. And this is more for, we can do an abducted bridge in an external rotation. It's really mainly for the reason the feet are stationary right now and they're parallel. You don't want your knees to go external. So that's the main reason. We can bridge in any way, shape, or form, but you want to always match your feet and your knees. Let's do this again. I'm going to pull my feet to my shoulders, shoulders to my feet. The whole foot is really grabbing onto the floor. I am lifting my pelvis up, but I'm dropping my rib cage down. And then by the power of your buttocks, you're going to lift the pelvis up. And the power of your hamstrings. So if you don't feel your legs here, lower your ribs. If you don't feel the buttocks, lower your ribs. Lower your ribs. They're usually the ones who want to help here, and they have no business in helping here. Pull the feet down into the floor, soften the diaphragm, drop your sitting bones, so sticking your butt out a little bit. And then see if we can go a little bit side to side. So I'm adding a little bit of a side to side sway. So that means you're making a little arc with your pelvis. So let's go to the right. Your right hip drops toward the floor. Pull the right shoulder and arm down into the floor. Pivot your feet. So you're on the outside of your right foot and the big toe side of your left foot. And then lift the pelvis gently through the middle, and you're going to arc to the left. Now the pinky toe side of my left foot is heavy. My left hip is lower than my right hip. And keep going side to side. And as you go to the right, you've got to pull your right shoulder down into the floor, maybe so much that your left heel and your left arm comes off the floor. And then slowly going to the other side, re-soften the diaphragm. You're going to come to the left foot, maybe the right heel and the right arm lifts up, but pull your left shoulder down into the floor. And we go one more time. Each side, pivoting to the right. Right hip is a little lower, left hip is higher. My left arm might lift up. I'm pulling my right shoulder down. And last one, going to the left. Right heel might lift. It doesn't have to. You can just do this as little as you want. But notice the importance of that shoulder pulling down on that same side we're pivoting the hip to. And then come to center and lower down. Straighten the legs one more time here. Deep breath. Feel what's showing up. Maybe even notice what's not showing up and just make a mental note. It's never about, oh, my butt didn't work or anything. It's more about, oh, wow, look at that. They just didn't do this voluntarily. So that's just information that we can work with. All right, bend your knees and then turn onto your belly, please. And if you have your pillow handy, definitely take it. And I like to make a little roll here for the forehead. And this is mainly just for now for your nose, so you don't squish your nose and you can still breathe. And we're going to just lie prone on your stomach, the pillow on your forehead, and you're going to reach your arms down by your side. But we're going to right away tuck the toes under. So you're flexing your toes, or maybe the first 4 big toe and then the next couple. My pinky toe is definitely not touching here. Okay, so if this is not comfortable for your back, you might want to put a little blanket underneath your pelvis, underneath your hip bones that we felt before, right? Those bony parts in the front. It is hopefully okay for everybody. So lift the navel first, a little bit off the floor. And this is very elusive in a way. It's lifting my kidneys up to the ceiling, but I'm not going to lift my pelvis up. So your hip bones and your pubic bone, they're actually quite heavy on the floor. So I'm just picking up the navel, and that, if your lower back is in discomfort, should definitely remedy that. And then I'm going to pull up my upper arm bone heads toward the ceiling. So I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together. My palms are still on the floor. My kidneys are lifted. And then I'm going to slowly let those upper arm bone heads drop again. This is a fairly small move. You're going to do that again. You're going to lift up your kidneys, or picking up the navel a little bit, and then shoulder blades squeeze together and down. The upper arm bones come away from the floor as much as you can. And this might not even be much. This is one of the harder things because our shoulders are tentatively so far forward rounded that bringing them back onto the back body is really, really hard. Let them release. And we'll do this one more time. We're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together. Upper arm bones come away from the floor. My navel is lifted. And I'm breathing. You could try and float the fingertips off the floor here. Do not lift your hands really high. You should feel way more work if your fingers are close to the ground. And then slowly release. I just want to show this for future reference. If I lift my hand up a lot, my shoulder actually forwardly rounds. I want to pick up the shoulder away from the floor and then just a tiny pickup in the hand. Because the higher the hand goes, the further again. So that's not what we want. I'm going to put both hands now on either side of your armpits. And we're going to squeeze the elbows in, really close to the rib cage. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, and then push with your palms down into the floor. So I'm gonna do this in a couple of different ways. So first thing, you can just stay here. Push your hands down into the floor. Lift your forehead just a little bit up, and imagine you want to push yourself away from the floor.
you try to do a push-up. Now, for most of us, a push-up is, I'd say for all of us, a push-up is really hard. So we're gonna do something called a press-up. This is a little cheat, but it's okay for now. So I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together. My toes are still tucked. I'm keeping my knees on the floor, and I'm going to push my head, my ribs, and my pelvis leave the ground in one piece. I'm not going to let my pelvis hang through like an upward dog. An upward dog. I'm going to pick up my kidneys. And now I'm slowly starting to squeeze the shoulder blades together, bend the elbows close to my ribs, and gracefully plonk down. Of course, you're going to try and limit the plonking. We're going to squeeze the shoulders together. My kidneys lift slightly up. My fingertips, all of my fingers are actually really grabbing onto the floor. And I'm going to lift everything. The knees and the toes stay down. And once I'm in that top of the push-up, I'm going to push the hands a little more into the ground so my shoulder blades can widen. Kidneys are lifted. And I'm going to pull myself down into the ground, squeezing the shoulders together. Go as slow as you can. Imagine you had to work this. We'll do this one more time. Unless you want to do it 5 more times, you're very welcome. But we're going to do it one more time. I'm going to squeeze the shoulders together. I'm going to lift the kidneys up. And I'm lifting my forehead, my heart, and my pelvis. My elbows are really close to the body. And we're going to push. I'm widening the shoulders a little more. I'm not rounding my spine necessarily. I'm just going to push the earth further down. And then I'm going to slowly pull myself one more time to the floor. Engage your glutes, engage your back body. Pull down and release. Take a little moment. Maybe roll out the wrists. And we're going to do one plank. I think we should do it. All right, so any which way, you can do one more press up. You can do a push up. One more time coming up to hands and knees. So being on hands and knees, you always want to check where are my hands and where are my legs, or my arms and my legs. So I don't want to be too far out here, and I don't want to be here. So you can see you want them ideally to be parallel, my arms and my legs. My hips are right underneath, on top of my knees, and my shoulders are on top of my wrists. Now we'll turn the palms a little bit out, but make sure the thumb and index fingers are the heaviest. And we'll rotate your elbows towards each other. Keep a slight bend in your elbows. Imagine you wanted to bend your elbows, but you're not going to. That should fire up your biceps. And then we're going to take one foot back, and we're going to take the other foot back. And here I am in my plank. I don't have to really change anything about my positioning. If we set up correctly, we're landing in the plank. Take a moment, push the earth away, turn on your glutes. Imagine you wanted to pull the back body up to the ceiling, and breathe. And now see if we can shift a little bit side to side. If this is too much for your wrists, stay stationary or lower your knees down. Keep picking up the kidneys, keep engaging your glutes. And next time you come to center, lower your knees, untuck the toes, and then see if we can come to sitting on your knees, on your shins, sorry. So if you might need a pillow or two. That is all up to what your knees and quads are doing. But if you can, with whatever support you need, sit in a wide V shape
knees are wider than my hips. My big toes are touching here. It's the last thing we're going to do. We're going to send the sits bones back. So here I'm looking for my anterior tilt. If this is at all not possible, stay upright. You can stay right here. So I'm sticking my butt out and I'm pushing my shins down into the floor, my knees. And right away, your legs should come alive. It should free up the upper body a little bit. Let's lift the right arm up to the ceiling. And we're going to do a side bend to the left. Push down into your feet. Push down into your shin. Look over your left shoulder. Big breath. Reach that right hand up, straight up to the ceiling. And then coming up. And you're going to go to the right. My left palm presses the ceiling away. My right hand might not even need, my body might not need support, but I can definitely take that hand down. Look over your right shoulder. Big breath into the left rib cage. And then come back to center. And then last thing here, and try this. Now you can walk your hands out in front. We're going to go into something that would be a child's pose. However, this is going to be a really active child's pose. So I'm sticking my butt out. I'm walking my hands forward for support. And I'm pushing my shins down into the floor. Look down and towards your knees slightly so the back of the neck is long. And you can push with your hands into the floor here. But if you can, I encourage you to walk your hands close to your knees so you have less support. And maybe there is a point, and you might have to come up a little bit with your upper body, but maybe there's a point where your hands are leaving the floor. That point might be here. But we're trying to increase the flexion in the hip together with the eccentric hips, glutes, and we're trying to get as far down to the floor with your forehead as possible without setting your forehead down. Breathing here, and we're going to do a little side to side sway. Coming more to the right with your rib cage and a little more to the left. Keep pushing down into your legs. You have to really show up for your legs here. And then slowly coming to center. If you need your hands, put your hands down. If not, that's good too. And push down into your shins and knees so much that we're hinging up from the hip here. Let the shoulders relax. Put your hands onto your thighs. Take a moment. Thank yourself for showing up. And slowly untangle the knees. And then I encourage you, when you get up off the floor, make it as playful as you can. So something without hands would be great. And we'll keep working on this anyway. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you. And if you need to pay, I'll send you an email how to go about that.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.